Hello, welcome to this amazing experience. Thank you so much for joining Flight MC015. My name is First Officer Mike, and we've been cruising the whole month into this amazing journey that is 15 years of God just showing up and doing amazing things in the lives of men and women all across Africa, all across the world. And so we're so excited, and I just want to share with you some of my excitement as we walk through 15 key milestones that have made up what Mavuno Church is today. So we want to start from the very beginning. So we're going way back to 2005, when 300 amazing men, women, and children gathered in a small suburb in Nairobi, known as what? It's not 2005? Just chill. No, I thought it was 2005. Okay, we're going way back then. Okay, guys, I think I got it wrong a little bit. So I'm told that our history actually began way back. So we're going to start from 1952. That's the first milestone. And at that particular time, there was a vision to plant a church that would focus on evangelism, that would be focusing on teaching, and that was interdenominational. And the people who were attending the church at that particular time were mostly the British troops, and that was known as the Nairobi Chapel. Fast forward to 1988. This is our second milestone. Now, after years of steady decline, Nairobi Chapel was struggling with numbers. There were about 20 adults remaining in the church, and they were left with only two options. It's either we close down or we seek help. So they decided to seek help, and they reached out to Nairobi Baptist Church, who were very willing to help them, and sent out a young, fiery intern in the name of Pastor Oscar Muriu. I mean, look at him then. And look at him now. Wow, amazing transformation. Now, he was not alone. He was also joined by Pastor Muriithi and Carol Wanjao, who were first-year campus students at that particular time. And God began to do amazing things in that space. Because between then, 1988, and 2004, the church grew from 20 adults to over 3,000 adults and children congregating in that particular space. It could only be God. The year is 2002, and the church is growing in leaps and bounds. And God begins to speak to the leadership at that particular time about the need for expansion. It was time to multiply. So teams were formed to begin to think about church plants across the 5 major highways of Nairobi. And that's where the thoughts of planting Mavuno Church began. 7th August 2005, 398 people gathered together for the very first service of Mavuno Church. Yeah! I mean, look at that. We took a photo, by the way, because it was such an important occasion. We had to capture this. This was history being made as people gathered in a suburb in Nairobi known as South Sea at a sports club for the very first service. And you know what? The team was being led by Pastor Muriithi Wanjao, there was Linda Ochola, there was Simon Baby, there was Kanji Mbugua. Amazing time. And at that particular time, the vision and mission of Mavuno Church became clear, very clear. And the mission was very simple: to turn ordinary people, say it with me, into fearless influencers of society. And the vision was to plant a culture-defining church in every capital city of Africa and the gateway cities of the world. That was the birth of Mavuno Church. Hey, watch this space. We're just beginning. Still in 2005, a discipleship experience is born known as Mizizi. And this was basically an experience that would help you to connect with God, with your purpose, and with community. At that particular time, we had our first foundation class that had 30 people. You know what? Mizizi has gone on to be translated into numerous languages, including English, Swahili, French, German, Sinhalese, Tamalese, Spanish, Arabic, and Mandarin. I am under the rock, and it's higher than me, higher than me. Yes, 2007, Mavuno is growing in leaps and bounds, and we're now getting known for our music, which was being led up by our founding pastor, Kanji Mbugua. And you know what? We decided to do what? We decided to record a worship album, which was known as the Mavuno Worship Project. And they decided to tour all across Kenya. They went into Egypt and into North America, and in the process raised funds which were used to restore some dignity to some prisoners in our Kenyan prisons. and they decided to get beds and mattresses for these particular prisoners. I mean, it was such an amazing project. You can see the life, how people were touched, and for the very first time, prisoners were now getting to sleep on mattresses and beds because of this. 2007. 2008. Coming to church then was an event, was an experience. For those who were there at that particular time, you remember that we had to wade through sea of waters, South Sea, you know, South Sea. I mean, you had to have a resolve to come to church. And we felt at that particular time we needed to find a new location. So after some search, we locked our location, which was the Bellevue Cinema Ground, and we moved it. And believe it or not, within a couple of weeks, we grew from 400 people to 1,600 people at that particular location. So it's 2009. Fearless Summit is born. Wow, I remember then because I was there. And you know what? It began as a simple in-house conference, but this thing grew into something bigger, attracting delegates from all across the world. I mean, from here, from here, from here, from here. And it was about, attracting church and marketplace leaders with the intent of transforming the world, because that's what we are about, turning ordinary people into fearless influencers of the world. Fearless Summit has now had 10 editions and now attracts over 1,400 delegates every year. Okay, so the year is 2009. And the vision about planting culture-defining churches is really taking shape. And two churches at that particular time begin to have conversations with the Mavuno family. And these are MDT Chapel and Mashiriki Chapel. And they end up becoming the very first church plant for the Mavuno movement. So we moved from one church in 2005 to 3 churches in 2009. It's 2010. A couple of Mavunites decide, let's go to Kampala. Let's start a Mizizi class there. And they do that for a couple of weeks. And a community begins to be formed there. And there's a need for a church. And that is how Mavuno Kampala was born. Now in Uganda, they're in 3 locations, in Kampala, Kabalagala, and in Entebbe. And that kind of gave us a blueprint on how to launch it to the rest of the English-speaking Africa. And so we now have churches in Zambia, in Malawi, in Rwanda, in Burundi, and Ethiopia. Move on to 2011, and we get to Guten Morgen. Pastor Daniel and Pastor Nancy come into Kenya from Germany, and they wanted to learn about church planting and what the whole Mavuno movement was all about. And they kind of fall in love with the whole mission and vision. And before long, we launched them back into Europe, and that's how Mavuno Berlin was born. I'm really sad. And you know why I'm sad? It's because we don't have a home of our own. Here we are launching churches in the rest of Africa and into Europe, but we don't have a place we can call our own. And you know what? That's when it struck us. We need to find a place where we can launch, a place we can call home, a place we can call our headquarters. And we began a search in 2014 for that perfect space. And we found a 20-acre piece of property out in Athi Rivers, just off Nairobi a bit. And we began to, raise money, and we raised a couple of $1 million. And it was not a small feat. And we went there, my family and I and a couple of people, went with our slashes and our hoes and our jambes and stuff like that. And we decided we're going to prepare this land. And it was an African savanna. I mean, it was bush, nothing but bush and grassland. And we slashed and we prepared the land and we dug and we envisioned how the place would be, and we had great dreams about how the place would transform. But little did we know the kind of transformation that would happen in that spot. After praying and after dedicating the land, this was how it looked like. But after years of carefully tilling the place, this is what it looks like now. Amazing transformation, amazing space. And this is now what is known as Mavuno Hill City, our headquarters, our home. This is where we are. Do you want a revolution? Do you want a revolution? Yeah! So I remember the time Dietrich Haddon and Kirk Franklin came to Mavuno. So it was Spread the Love Festival, and this is something that had begun a couple of years back, where we were just showing love to the communities around us and being relevant to those places. So we were doing cleaning the streets, we were refurbishing police stations and prisons and things like that. But in 2017, this really began to take shape. So each of the Mavuno campuses decided to adopt a public primary school and to work with them. And we were doing things like refurbishing their infrastructure, like their water systems, painting their classes, repairing furniture, and also things like providing reading materials and equipment for these particular schools. And over the years, we've been able to work with about 15 public primary schools, raising over $600,000 in support of the same. Spread the love. Bonjour, bonjour, oui, oui, comment ça va? Batoto bamungu. So it's 2018 and now we're beginning to think we need to now move beyond just the English-speaking Africa into the French-speaking Africa. And this is the time now the Mavuno DRC is born. And you know what? This is now an exciting time because now we're thinking about translating everything into the relevant languages in the different regions that we're speaking in. And this was a very exciting time. Oh, Batoto bamungu. So Mavuno Church has planted churches in Africa and into Europe, and we're sensing God telling us that we need to look into planting churches in other gateway cities of the world. And an opportunity opened for us in Washington, D.C., and we sent our very first missionaries into the US of A. Pastor Kevin and Lucy were commissioned, and we prayed for them, and we sent them out in faith to look into the possibility of another campus in North America. USA! 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 So it's been 15 years of God's goodness, 15 amazing milestones of God's faithfulness over the Mavuno community. So the big question is, what's next? And you know what? It's going to be another 15 years of celebrating God's faithfulness, 15 years of planting culture-defining churches, and very importantly, 15 years of turning ordinary people into fearless influences of society.